the skull. In the spring of 1438, Paris hosted a grand tournament that drew knights from across Europe. Among them was Piers de Massy, a respected French nobleman known for his aggressive style in the lists. He was considered a formidable jouster, having won several contests throughout northern France. That day, he faced the English knight John Astley in what was called a joust of war. Unlike more common tournaments where lances had coronals, blunted, crown-shaped tips, this match used sharp-pointed lances. The weapons were solid oak, 9 feet long, with metal tips designed to pierce armor. Both men knew the risks. The crowd fell silent as they took their positions at opposite ends of the field. At the signal, both knights spurred their horses forward. Their mounts reached full gallop, thundering toward each other at nearly 30 miles per hour. Astley aimed his lance perfectly, keeping it steady as the distance closed. When they met at center field, his weapon struck with devastating precision. The lance hit Massey directly in the face. The metal tip punched through his helmet's visor, shattering the steel plate. Witnesses described a sickening crack that echoed across the field. The lance drove straight through Massey's skull, entering just below his left eye and emerging from the back of his head. The force of the impact lifted Massey from his saddle. For several seconds, his body remained impaled on Astley's lance, suspended in midair. Blood poured from both sides of the wound, coating the wooden shaft. When Astley lowered his weapon, Massey slid off and collapsed to the ground, still moving. Incredibly, Massey was still conscious. His body convulsed as he tried to breathe through the blood filling his throat. His hands clawed at his ruined face, fingers touching splintered bone and exposed brain tissue. The crowd watched in horror as he struggled for nearly a minute, making terrible gurgling sounds. Death finally came when the blood loss and brain damage became too severe. His body went limp, his final movements nothing more than random muscle spasms. Dragged to death by a wild horse. On June 27, 1241, a forbidden tournament was held at Ware Priory in Hertfordshire, despite King Henry III's explicit ban on such events. Gilbert Marshall, the 4th Earl of Pembroke, was among the participants. At 44 years old, Marshall was an experienced nobleman but lacked the extensive tournament training of his more famous father, William Marshall. He arrived riding a magnificent Spanish stallion, a powerful but notoriously difficult animal to control. The horse was adorned with expensive trappings that marked Gilbert's status. It stood nearly 17 hands high, with powerful haunches that made it faster than most tournament mounts. Those close to the field noticed the animal was already agitated, pawing at the ground and fighting against its bit. Gilbert struggled to keep the stallion under control as they prepared to enter the lists. As he urged his mount forward, the horse reared unexpectedly. Gilbert, caught off guard by the sudden movement, was thrown from the saddle. In that moment, disaster struck. His right foot remained caught in the stirrup, a heavy iron construction designed to keep knights stable during jousting impacts. The frightened stallion bolted, dragging Gilbert across the tournament field. His head and shoulders bounced violently against the hard-packed earth. Witnesses described the sickening sound of his helmet repeatedly striking the ground. With each impact, blood sprayed from the openings in his visor. For nearly 100 yards, Gilbert was pulled helplessly behind the panicking animal. His arms flailed as he desperately tried to free himself. His armor, designed to protect against frontal impacts, now became a prison of metal scraping against the ground, tearing away at his flesh beneath. Other knights attempted to intercept the horse, but failed to catch the swift Spanish stallion. When the animal was finally stopped, Gilbert was still conscious. His face was unrecognizable, a mass of torn flesh and exposed bone. Blood bubbled from his mouth as he tried to speak. He remained alive for several more hours, his body broken beyond repair. Internal bleeding filled his lungs until he could no longer draw breath. As evening fell, Gilbert Marshall died from his injuries. The fatal eye splinter of the king. On June 30th, 1559, the royal tournament grounds at Rue Saint-Antoine in Paris were filled with spectators celebrating the dual wedding of the king's daughter and sister. Henry II, 40 years old and considered one of the most skilled jousters in his realm, prepared for what would be his final ride. The king wore a black and white plumed helmet with a golden visor, ornate but offering less protection than standard tournament armor. His opponent was Gabriel Montgomery, captain of the Scottish Guard. Montgomery had tried to withdraw from the match, but Henry insisted they continue. The two men charged toward each other on their third pass. Their lances collided with tremendous force. Montgomery's lance shattered upon impact. A large wooden splinter, nearly 6 inches long, penetrated the king's helmet visor. The crowd fell silent as the king remained upright in his saddle for several seconds before his body went limp. Attendants rushed to his side. When they removed his helmet, they discovered the horrific truth. The splinter had entered through his right eye, driving fragments of wood and metal into his brain. Blood poured from the wound as the king moaned in agony. Henry remained conscious. He could feel the wood embedded in his skull, pressing against his brain tissue. The royal physicians, including the famous surgeon Ambroise Paré, worked desperately to extract the fragments. Each attempt to remove the splinters caused excruciating pain. The wound quickly became infected despite their efforts. For 10 days, Henry drifted between consciousness and delirium. The infection spread deeper into his brain. The king experienced seizures, periods of paralysis, and moments of clarity where he understood his fate. The pain was constant and unbearable. unbearable. By July 9th, his brain had swollen significantly, putting pressure against his skull. On July 10th, after nearly 2 weeks of suffering, Henry II of France died from the infection that had consumed his brain. His last hours were spent in agony, unable to speak or move, trapped in a body that was shutting down around him. Impalement through